All right, let's do it live on a Tuesday of Cleveland Browns Daily. I am merely Beau. He is the great Z from the CCMC. I am. You still one more day?
One more day, close contact quarantine, and then I'm back, baby.
You're back,
in
baby.
Time for a little Arctic bomb. You got a date Wednesday, baby. Let's go.
What is? Yeah, this is an event, right? This is a weather event that's coming our way. Do we know when this is going to hit? Does anybody know?
Wednesday night into Thursday morning, and it's going to come unglued. I've seen reports from 14 to 27 inches.
Is it? But it's Gibby. You are the chief meteorologist of this program.
Tell him to let me into the Zoom for crying out loud.
We won't let either one of us into the Zoom. Neither one of us are into the Zoom at this point. But
it's outrageous.
It is outrageous. Gibby, what? Well, now he's working on the Zoom. He's bouncing around, editing things. Got a lot going on.
Yeah.
You got to mute this, first of all. Let's get this all muted up. There we go. Okay. There you go.
All right.
I still don't see Z. All right, get muted. Get yourself muted. Gibby, you are the chief meteorologist of this program from your storm chaser days when you used to chase tornadoes throughout Oklahoma.
That's right.
Can you what are you looking forward to here? What are we in for in the next 48?
Depends how far north that line tracks. We're definitely going to get a nice ice storm. The question's going to be how much snow.
The ice storm is the point of contention for me because ice storm there's a wreaking of havoc there. That's phone lines down, power lines down. That's ice storm is where it gets real dicey. I'll take 36 inches of snow. You're safe, pal. We'll deal with that. Ice storm, less so. Less enthused.
Well, and we're going to get rain, it feels like, tomorrow that's going to turn in then into freezing rain, which is then going to turn into this Arctic bomb, and all of it bad.
We set the over-under on snow melt on, I think I said it, March 2nd. Do we have that? March 2nd we set the over-under?
Yeah, I took the over by a mile.
He took the over, and Zegura took the under.
Yeah, he thought this week it was going to happen with rain and 45 degrees.
We're supposed to be 50 this week with rain.
Yeah, that would have done it.
It was supposed to happen.
Like one day.
That would have done it. Not anymore.
That would have done it?
That would have done it.
I don't think it would have done it.
All the snow, probably not. But if you would have had one more of those that would have started to stack, you would have been in a good spot. But we're not going to be in a good spot. We're going to be in some sort of ice freeze hell.
So, we could have like 2 or 3 inches of ice, 12 to 18 inches of snow, and then ice on top of that come Friday morning.
And then underneath, you have the 2 feet of snow that are already there in certain parts of the area. So you're going to go snow, ice, snow, ice, snow, ice. I mean, it's like one of those cakes that you get. Or a lasagna with the layers.
So not only are you going to get that, but then Friday night it's going to be like 2 above.
Awesome.
And the wind chill is going to be like minus 10 again.
That's fantastic. I love it. And this is all of the brochure. I get it, but this is even extreme for us.
This is getting a little like
this is not in the brochure.
My friends in the plains are anticipating. They were told 27 inches of snow. Be ready. Drifts to 4 or 5 feet.
How do you? What an absurd thing to say. Be ready. Well, unless you have an Arctic cat.
Look,
what are you going to do?
There is one way to get ready. You go get a keg. You have a good ball tap. You got to get their good quality tap, the keg tap. It's called a ball tap.
You sure?
Yes. Yes, it's a ball tap.
You said it.
For you people that trust me, if you get like the giant,
you don't have a great record.
Unkind from one human to another. Yeah,
you do not have an emphatic.
I'm slinging hot dogs tonight, and people come up to me
slinging
and
dogs.
So, can we talk about what you were doing today on the show?
I think what you're
slinging dogs tonight.
Cup check.
No,
cup check.
Well, the cup check is a separate entity.
Sounds a lot like what you just said.
No,
that's fantastic.
It's not.
All right, so it's a ball tap. All right, so the ball tap on the keg, that's going to be
you get the keg.
You said it.
You have plenty of snow and freezing weather to keep the beer nice and cold.
Yeah.
You get your solo cups. You invite your friends over. And if the
what
world's ending,
you
had a good run.
Must be the way that it flows.
What you love about it? Why must you have a ball tap?
If you're getting the quarter keg, which
the
is
pony.
the big, No.
Or do you want the
forget
big boy?
Pony.
No, the
like,
full.
come on. You have
want
to
the
have
big
enough
boy.
alcohol to be sustained.
So are you by the tone that you're taking here and the words that are coming out of your mouth, it would lead me to believe that once the snow and the ice storm happens and Armageddon hits here, that we will not be doing shows Thursday and Friday because of it. And so that's how we can have the fun that we're going to have. Am I reading into that correctly?
Oh, I mean, we might have to. You might need a couple cups of coffee, maybe a little hydration to get you through
We're
a couple
still
hours.
working.
I mean, that's going to be on you guys.
We're
like
still
the
working.
Postal Service.
We are.
No, nothing will stop us.
I feel like you're going to be working from home later this week.
Yeah, I think that.
I think we should preface that the
feels
live
like a
stream
lock.
may not be available later this week.
Yeah, Iron Will and others, Brown's Therapy. Don't panic if there's no stream later in the week, for it is merely an ice storm. And that's if we have power, because that's obviously a big part of that going forward.
That changes the dynamic as well.
Yeah, certainly does. What do you – so what do you think happened with the Brady retirement?
All right, hold on. I've got so much to talk about. So much.
Please, anything you would like. You're the
First
franchise.
of all, the official Nana of the show, as I said yesterday, her birthday, made her this brisket, black gold. I called it. It came out. It couldn't have been better. I nailed the glaze on it. It was dynamite. Nana also now has a generator, so she's the official Nana. Don't you worry about her, folks. She's going to be just fine throughout this snowstorm and this ice bomb. So way to go, Nana. So that's good.
And you'd be able to go there if there was some sort of an event. You'd be able to go there.
If need be.
See, I don't have the means, so I will not have an ability to broadcast remotely. If power is out, best of luck.
Best of luck. Yeah. Well, I will
but
find
you'll
out.
be able
what
to.
I was told is she's not sure if it can power a Comrex. So right now, power out.
Wow. Very
We're not
specific
sure about
generator.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
it's a specific type of power to be able to broadcast with this type of panache. And
That's true.
We're not sure if her generator, that's not high on the list of her generator's priorities.
Fair.
It's like fridge, heat.
Yeah.
Panache,
Comrex is way down.
Way down the bottom. So, all right, what happened with his retirement? Clearly, he was going to retire, and it was told to somebody probably inappropriately. As they say, if you want to keep something a secret, don't tell anybody. That's number one. Yeah, look at that. Smart. Heard that from a very wise man. And then they went with it. And I kind of feel like there's two sides of this, right? Do you let Tom Brady have his moment where he gets to announce it himself? Or do you do what Schefter did? And in some ways, the story became as much about Schefter as it did about Tom Brady for the last 48 hours, which is insane to think about.
This is Adam Schefter's job.
Right.
Singularly defined is to break news. There are two people in the sports media business that cover sports that are known almost exclusively for only breaking news. In fact, if you have Schefter on stuff, and I know you guys have had Schefter on before, I used to have him on a show I did in Columbus every week, and he really is he's not interested in giving an opinion. He, in fact, pushes back. He has no interest in it. You try to get an opinion out of him, he really doesn't have any interest. He just wants to give you information. And so this is his job. It's him and Woj. Those are the two guys that their job, it's a one-man beat. That Shams guy does it a little bit against Woj, a little bit, his former protege. But, I mean, that's it. That's the job, is to break the news. So, yes, you're tasked with a dilemma of, okay, this information has come to my attention. And he was pressed. I told you this yesterday on the show. He was pressed by Reese Davis when Reese said, do you stand by this? And Schefter said yes. So he obviously had it.
Yep.
And felt like he had to go with it. Now, I think the one thing you can question is what means were used to use it or used to get the information. Were they nefarious, if you will? That is a different conversation to be had. Where did he get the information from? I saw Jimmy Trania, who's been on our show before and is great on SI and used to do the Hot Mustard and all of that and does the SI podcast. And I saw something that he floated out there that to me made a ton of sense. And that is that the plan was for Tom to announce this on Man in the Arena, the season finale or finale of Man in the Arena. And
I like it.
And ESPN would have had to have been taped. ESPN would have gotten wind of that. Somebody would have gotten that to their two guys, and then they were tasked to report it. That, I think, would be a nefarious means if that played out that way. That, to me, would be very nefarious. Yeah. Yeah, very. So if it came out, if that's the way that it happened, and then Brady's like, oh, blanket, I'll just do it on Instagram. Because keep in mind, he had a radio show last night where he could have just done this last night. By the way, whoever's paying him for that, what is that thing? Let's Go podcast with Jim Gray. Whoever's paying him for that, I'd be saying, hey, Tom, I don't know, maybe on this medium? Throw us a bone, Coach.
We have a clip from that. Like, literally, this was at 7 o'clock last night live.
Play it. Let's hear this. This is Tom from last night.
So things kind of changed from your decompression when America was told that you were retiring on Saturday afternoon, and we haven't heard from you as to whether or not that was the case or is the case. Has anything changed with you since we last spoke on Let's Go regarding your retirement?
You know, it's a good week for me, and I'm just still going through the process that I said I was going through. So sometimes it takes some time to really evaluate how you feel and what you want to do. And I think when the time's right, I'll be ready to make a decision one way or another, just like I said last week.
So the time was right, what, 12 hours later?
Jim Gray, I'm not giving this to you.
You ain't getting it, Jimbo.
Go. Let's go. By the way, he should be paying me some royalties for the Let's Go podcast.
He should. Yeah, I think you're right. So there you go. So it's just a strange way, the way that it all came about and the way that it was all unveiled or made public. But what shouldn't be lost in all of that is that this is a guy who threw for 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns, and PFF had him as the MVP of the National Football League, and he's done. And he's done at 44. There's other things with the messaging. Didn't thank the Patriots until just within the last hour, which was strange, I thought. No mention of them. You want to go there first before you get into him as a player? Because that's crazy, too.
Sure.
And it took the Patriots forever to say congratulations. It was nuts.
You read that, if you were an alien that was just dropped onto this planet with the ability to read English, kudos to you. You're an advanced sentient being.
They usually are. I've noticed most aliens having to step up on us when they get here.
You would be like, well, it does appear that way. You would read this and you say, okay, this guy must have had a historic, long, decade-plus career with the Bucks.
Yep.
And clearly had a love affair with the city of Tampa Bay and the general manager and the coach and the ownership.
That's right.
And he was a career Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Probably started his career there, finished his career there. It's all that he's known in the world of football. And you come to find out he's won 7 Super Bowls. He's probably won them all in Tampa. I mean, that read like a guy. That would be like if Joe Montana announced his retirement and did everything that he talked about in his retirement was all about the Kansas City Chiefs and made no mention whatsoever of the San Francisco 49ers. And then people are like, well, he thanked them when he left the New England Patriots. You retire from the NFL once. That is a career retrospective, all-encompassing thing. This was an obvious. I guarantee somebody read this in his circle and was like, so we're really not mentioning the Patriots at all here, huh? And he was like, yeah, that's exactly right. No mention of Bill Belichick. No mention of Robert Kraft. No mention of the fact that he played in New England. Like, that's what I'm saying. If you did not know who Tom Brady was by reading his retirement speech on the greatest career in the history of the National Football League, a career that was, 22 years?
Yep.
20 of which were with the New England Patriots and only 2 are with Tampa?
Yep.
That didn't add up. And I asked a question. I said, am I missing something? Because I thought maybe in the scrolling and that perhaps I was making human error. And people were like, man, what do you want him to do? Like, he thanked him when he left there. What do you mean? I'm stunned by it. Still, as I talk about it out loud, it still seems crazy.
Yeah, you hit it. You had the perfect analogy. It's the Joe Montana not thanking the 49ers. I mean, that's it. It really is that. It would be like as if, if you thought Montana only played for the Chiefs. I mean, of course, Brady won a Super Bowl with the Bucks.
Correct.
But, I mean, still, I think the point is valid. So it's a wild thing. He'll be eligible for the Hall in 2027, so he would go in with Roethlisberger. It's a pretty loaded class. Gibby asked the question, he's the greatest NFL player to ever play the game. He's the most accomplished player to ever play the game. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. The greatest player, then you open yourself up into the Jim Brown, Lawrence Taylor, Jerry Rice conversation. I think all those things are fair. But it's at a point now that I would say this. You know how you feel about like the Cy Young 511 wins, or you feel about Wilt Chamberlain scoring 100, although that's maybe even more attainable now than you ever thought. But the 511 and those type of records, no one's playing in 10 Super Bowls and winning 7. That's done.
He was in the championship game of his conference 14 of the 20 years that he was healthy. 70% in conference championships.
Yeah, it'll
That's
never
nuts.
happen again. And 10 of the half the time of his career he played in the Super Bowl, and he won 7. There's never going to be, you'll never see that again. So there's no argument for anybody else. It happened in a bunch of different ways. I've seen him win 2 Super Bowls personally, how improbable the first one was. They were 2 touchdown underdogs, I'm pretty sure, 14 down underdogs to the Rams, and come back and won that one. And I remember I was listening to the radio because the auxiliary press, which is for everybody, was in the stands at the Superdome at the time, and it was when I was there the last time too. But it was in the stands, and so I was listening to the game, and the people on the radio broadcast were going, when they got the ball back after the Rams scored, they were like, just go to overtime, man. Play for overtime. Don't make a mistake here. Like, that's how little confidence they had in Brady. And he made a couple of throws. Vinatieri hits a game winner, and the rest is history, and then that leads to a bunch of it. But he changed over the course of his career from a game manager early to the most prolific passer in the league. So it's a remarkable career accomplishment. And wasn't Joe 6th-round pick too? They both were 6th-round picks?
No, Joe was a 3rd or 2nd.
Okay. I was thinking he was a lower pick too. But, yeah, 6th-round pick. The whole thing is just it's an incredible career, and it does stink a little bit the way that the thing ended.
I agree. What's crazy is you look at it, he led the NFL in passing touchdowns. I would not have had this. In 2002, his second year as the starter, he led the NFL with 28 passing touchdowns. I would not have had that.
No.
He leads the NFL in passing touchdowns 5 times throughout the course of his career, including his final season. He leads the NFL in passing yards 4 times in his career, including the final season. That, to me, is just a staggering thing to contemplate, that he was able to do that at the age, he's an ageless wonder. And I thought we were maybe, if it was the nefarious leaking that that is certainly a possible scenario, I could have seen a spite year, and that would have been a lot of fun, one spite year. But unfortunately, we won't get the spite, though. You wanted spite. You got spite. That retirement announcement, nobody can tell me any different. He may thank New England then, and then he comes back and is just like, thank you at Patriots and Patriots Nation.
Patriots Nation. That's it. Yeah, crazy.
That's it.
This also opens up, the other side of it is, the NFC South is wide open.
Wide open. As wide open as it's ever been. 3
as
teams
any
have
division.
No idea who their starting quarterback is this year, and the 4th has no idea who their starting quarterback is in 2023.
Yeah.
Or maybe this year.
Or maybe this year. Yeah, you could have 4 new quarterbacks, and there's nobody in the pipeline in any of them that you would lead you to believe that they know what they're doing at the position. It's ripe for the taking. It adds another attractive franchise, stable franchise for a quarterback to land. You think about Watson, you think about Rodgers, you think about Wilson. There are 3 teams in that division, the Carolina, Tampa Bay, and New Orleans, that are all really attractive. Really, really attractive. So it's fascinating.
It is fascinating, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because somebody's going to win that division next year, right? And, you don't know what it's going to be like. All the veterans who came to play with Tom Brady, I would imagine, they're going to be that team is going to look significantly different. Will the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? It's going to be, you're right. It's an absolutely wild scene there. So real quickly, I'm on the Pro Football Reference page for Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And they always have, for the players, if they were stars, obviously, they have in parentheses after their names, they have their nicknames.
Mm-hmm.
And Brady has many.
Okay.
And I just want to know if you have heard all of these used to describe Tom Brady, because there's one of them that I've never heard used to describe Tom Brady. Go ahead, Gibby. What do you want? No, he doesn't want anything?
No.
Keep talking. Okay. All right. So here it is. First one, TB12.
Yeah.
TB12.
TB12. I don't know that anyone calls him that. It's the name of his company. Next.
Sure. Tom Terrific. Tommy Terrific, of course.
Maybe Giselle. No one else calls him that.
I've heard that, though. I've heard Tommy Terrific.
Really? In reference to him?
Yeah, on like ESPN for sure. Yeah,
Tommy Terrific? Okay, next.
Yeah. Touchdown Tom. That was Touchdown Tommy
Touchdown
Vardell.
Tommy Vardell. Yeah, that's Touchdown Tommy Vardell. Sorry.
Would be the first Touchdown Tom.
Former
All
Brown,
right,
no big deal.
GOAT, we've heard.
GOAT?
Comeback. Yeah, he's the GOAT.
Do you remember the GQ? Remember the GQ magazine when he was posing with the baby goats? Like 10 years ago? Go ahead. Next.
That's prescient. Comeback Kid.
No.
I have never heard that.
No.
Sir Tom Brady. I've heard Sir Elton John.
No. I think a queen has to
Sir
bestow
Laurence
that.
Olivier.
Yeah.
Right. And then here's the one, though, of all of them that I have 100% never, ever heard. The Pharaoh.
The Pharaoh?
So it says on Pro Football References, one of his nicknames, the Pharaoh, Tom Brady. Like, I've never heard him called the Pharaoh.
Oh, my gosh. That's gorgeous. The Pharaoh.
The Pharaoh.
No.
Who calls him the Pharaoh? I want to know. I like it. I wish they had gone with it. I think it would have been great.
Wow. I would not have had the Pharaoh.
The Pharaoh.
Yeah. No, I don't. I wouldn't have had many of those. I will say I was excited. It was cool to see him get to. It was cool at the end of his Patriots run and through his Tampa Bay run that his personality started to show a little bit, because he was a little bit like a cyborg at the beginning of the career, because he was under the Belichick wing, and then he was able to live a little bit as it went along. You marvel at how good he was under pressure, and you think. I mean, I think the singular moment is the Falcons win, the way that they just marched back. That's still impossible to wrap your head around in retrospect.
It is. It's crazy, and you know they were showing the clip of the Malcolm Butler one and the craziness of that, the Falcons one, and just how wild it is. It's funny though, you mentioned at the beginning he was like a cyborg. I would say in his pictures now though, he does a crazy thing with his eyes where he almost looks like he is actually a cyborg now and not a real human. Like some of his like stock pictures now are
they're strange.
Wild.
Yeah. Also strange that with all of the success and who they beat in the postseason all those years, 2 losses to the Giants and a loss in crazy fashion both times, nothing more than the Tyree catch when they were going for undefeated, and then to Nick Foles. That those are their Super Bowl losses through all of that is also kind of a wild thing to wrap your head around when you try to put it all into perspective.
It's crazy. I mean, it is the greatest career that a quarterback will ever have in the NFL. Yeah, it is wild, some of the victories that were snatched from the jaws of defeat, the losses. Yeah, that you lose to the backup quarterback of the Eagles.
Right.
I mean, that's bonkers. It's I'm going to miss him. I mean, he's been a part of basically my whole football life, I want to say. At least half of it, right? More than half of it.
Yeah, I definitely rode him to a fantasy football championship that year he threw 50. He was actually the second quarterback I took that year in that draft. I'm pretty sure of it. And he threw for 50 in that one, which was pretty remarkable. That was the year they were undefeated with Randy Moss. So great stuff there on the retirement of Tom Brady and just the chaos all around it. There's a lot of bad advice out there about gambling, from secret methods to picking lottery numbers to betting big when you're on a roll. These myths can lose you money, but get you in a lot of trouble as well. So before you wager, find out what's real and what isn't at keepitfunohio.com. Luke Easterling will join the program. We'll hear from Wyatt Teller. Z goes one-on-one with him. Absolute chaos in some of the NFL coaching hires that are going on around the league as well. You have all of that to look forward to, which is very, very nice. We're off and running. It's Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Well, the weather outside is cold. It's going to get a lot colder. A nice hot bath or shower would feel amazing. Why not transform your bathroom into a custom bath that's going to feel like a spa? Let the Bath Authority make this a reality for you. Even better, they can do this at a fraction of the cost of the competitors. The Bath Authority can transform your bathroom from outdated to outstanding. Call now for a free estimate. Get 2 tickets to the Great Home and Garden Show. 216-220-8399 is the number. www.bathauthority.com is where you'll find them. It's where affordability meets quality. They can do this for you guys in about a day. It's Cleveland's bathroom remodeling experts' largest selection of bath products. They're made in the United States. Check them out, bathauthority.com, 216-220-8399 on that front. And with that, we head out on the hotline for a visit with Luke Easterling, the draft wire, and the reporter at the Bucks Wire, covering Tampa Bay and all things. We'll get into the Senior Bowl in a second. But, of course, we start with Tom. Luke, what do you make of how this transpired over the weekend?
You know, it looks just like a situation where, you know, Tom probably had his mind made up long before now. I know he wanted to kind of make it appear that the opposite was true and that he was still kind of debating this. But when you take his comments really last night on his podcast with Jim Gray, talking about how, you know, I'll know when the time is right, and, you know, it made it seem like he was still considering that, but obviously with an announcement being made this morning, you know good and well that was not the case. That this is obviously something he had been moving towards, and makes it seem obviously like the reports we saw earlier, you know, over the weekend from ESPN and CBS Sports, you know, that the information was good, you know, that obviously people close to him knew that was what he was going to do. And, you know, I believe he informed the team this morning before he made his official announcement. But, you know, this was, I think we all kind of expected maybe something a little more grand, you know, maybe a big video presentation or something to do with his Man in the Arena series or something to make that sort of announcement. In the end, it was just a really long, really nice personal statement on social media, thanking pretty much everybody up and down the Buccaneers organization and the Tampa Bay community down here, and just making it clear. One of the more interesting things I thought in the statement was he said that I'm not going to make that competitive commitment anymore. Not that he can't, because he knows darn well that he could after what he just did in his last season and really in his last game. I mean, the last thing Tom Brady did on a football field was come back from down 27-3 in the last 20 minutes of a playoff game and give his team a chance to win there at the end. And his last touchdown pass was a 55-yard bomb to Mike Evans, beating Jalen Ramsey in man-to-man coverage. I mean, I know he didn't win the game, but it's hard not to look at what he has done and the way he's walking away as somebody who's obviously walking away at the very top of his game after leading the NFL in passing yards, passing touchdowns, and all of that. You know, it's clearly something he knows he can still do at a high level, but there are things that are more important to him at this point.
Were you surprised by it, especially? I know I had seen your tweet to that effect that, you know, he led the league in passing and passing touchdowns this year. He obviously can do it, but, you know, that for Tom Brady, clearly it's a lifestyle commitment and one that he's no longer willing to make. Does that surprise you that, you know, he would go out so close and having that was a pretty heartbreaking loss, I would imagine, for the Bucs coming off of their Super Bowl win a year ago?
It was, and there's definitely a way that you can look at that and not be able to understand why somebody would walk away. And honestly, I think Ian Rappaport over the weekend put it kind of the opposite way, and he was like, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you walk away at that point? You've accomplished literally everything you could possibly accomplish at any point in your career. You're long past any time, you know, any moment that any other player would really hope to be still in the league in their mid-30s, late 30s, even at 40 years old, and to still be 44 and playing at this level. You know, there is a point where it becomes more about what else you have going on in your life. And Brady obviously has become very busy in the business world and the different brands and things that he's doing with his he's launching, you know, NIL stuff with college athletes. He's got obviously the TB12 brand and the Brady brand apparel company that he's launching. And he's also somebody who has been very, very vocal about his family commitments over the last few years in particular and how important that is to him. His kids are getting older. He doesn't want to miss all that. You know, he obviously also has, you know, a wife that has her own interests and her own ventures, and he wants to be as supportive of her as she has been of him throughout his career as well. So, you know, especially, you know, just for me, I can't relate to Tom Brady in a lot of ways, but I can relate to him as a husband and a father, and I can relate to that aspect of your life making, you know, influencing you to make decisions that on a professional level might not make sense to some people who are looking at it from the outside in. but they make sense to you, and that's all that really matters because, again, to him it feels like that it's time for him to be more focused on his family. He's got plenty of other ventures to kind of keep his business interests and maybe his competitive interests. I know we'll probably see him on the golf course quite a bit. But now it's time for him to kind of go home, be a dad and a husband, and I obviously can't fault him for that.
Luke, obviously we know what he did on the field. I mean, he won a Super Bowl first time out there. That's well known. He had an MVP quality caliber season this year. But just to be around him from a couple of years, I know we were in COVID and all of that, but just to be around him the way that you were, even a little bit at a distance, what did he do for that organization off the field? What did he do for the room, for just the building? What did you see from the way that he handled himself there?
I think he showed really the entire organization just how much more it takes to really be great consistently, because the Bucs have had some great players and great leaders, over the years, even the years that they weren't playing very well in recent seasons. Mike Evans and Levante David and have been here for a long, long time playing really good football on really bad teams. So it's not like they haven't had those voices and those leaders. Gerald McCoy also comes to mind. But when you've accomplished what Tom Brady has accomplished and you have won championships over and over and over again, and you know what it takes to go from being good to great and from being great to being legendary, that there are ways that he goes about his business that once he got here, even the best players, even the most experienced coaches, Bruce Arians, who's been around some great players and been around championship teams, the way he works every day and every snap, everything he eats, like literally to a really silly degree sometimes, the effort that he puts into achieving that excellence, it just raised the bar for the entire organization to a completely different level. And I think obviously Bucs fans are hoping that rubs off on the way the organization moves forward in a way that you can't go back to the way it was, right? You've seen what it looks like to really invest 100% into being a championship franchise and what it takes to commit to get there. Now that you know what that looks like on a day-to-day basis, they're hoping to carry that forward and continue those processes, even though Tom's not there physically. I think his print on this franchise will go far beyond these 2 years, even though these 2 years were more than enough. What he did here was unbelievable. They went 29-10, by far the best 2-year stretch in franchise history. Obviously won a Super Bowl. Just incredible on-the-field accomplishments, but it's really the way he set the standard for how to go about being a championship organization. I think that will long outlive his time here.
So do you think that the Bucs, in light of this, will try to get Godwin back and then try to maybe go for an Aaron Rodgers if he is disgruntled, or Russell Wilson, and try to bring in another elite-level quarterback and keep this thing rolling and give him a chance at another Super Bowl in 2022? Or do you think, they are going to have to reset?
Oh, I definitely think they're going to try to keep striking while the iron is at least warm, if not as hot as it was last time. Obviously, Tom Brady is kind of a unicorn in the way he became available, and I still don't even think that for most of us down here it's really been made terribly real. I think it's still hard to believe that he was a free agent and decided to come to Tampa Bay of all places and accomplish what he did here. So, but yeah, the way the Bucs had structured so many of the contracts last offseason in particular has put them in a tough spot to where at some point they're going to have to just bite the bullet and eat all the dead money and reset everything and probably be bad for a few years before they can reset all that because of what they did over the last couple of years to make the most of that time with Tom Brady. And it worked. No matter what happens in the future, it obviously worked. They're not really going to care. But in terms of how they approach this offseason, I don't see them ready to give up on that effort just yet, especially when you look at the quarterback landscape and look at those names that you mentioned that could become available. I know a lot of them aren't free agents, but some of them could be disgruntled and be willing to be traded even within the conference. I think that's the most interesting thing with Rodgers and Wilson. But there are some other guys that I think they will be most interested in. I think any sort of reset or rebuild would be an absolute last resort for this team. And they'll have to miss a lot. They'll have to miss on a lot of other guys, a lot of opportunities in order to feel like, oh man, I guess we're just going to blow it up and go into, Kyle Trask will be our week 1 starter. I think that's Bruce Arians has talked about door number 1, door number 2. I think Kyle Trask is like door number 8 for this offseason. I think they're going to have to whiff on a lot of other options before they end up in that situation.
And couldn't a lot of what you just said be made to explain the other teams in that division as well? Nathan and I were talking. This opens that thing up the way that I can't recall a division being as open as that one will be next year as we currently sit.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild situation in the NFC South for sure. I think you got Matt Ryan, who's obviously the sure thing, right? You know at least what you're going to get out of him in Atlanta, but you don't know about that supporting cast. Obviously, New Orleans is a huge question mark from the top down with Sean Payton's departure, and you don't know what's happening at quarterback there. The Panthers, whether or not they're going to use their top pick on a quarterback or try to ride with Sam Darnold for another year, I'm not sure what their plan is, but yeah, it's a very, very interesting landscape in the NFC South, especially after so many years where it felt like the Saints were so stable and dominant. The Bucs obviously had their impressive couple of years here, but yeah, it's really anybody's division from the outset.
When you think about this whole kind of weekend and what's gone into it leads to this announcement today, we were just talking. You're in Tampa, so I'm just curious to hear your perspective on this. But we were saying if an alien came here and read this retirement speech, they would certainly think a guy who played 22 years in the league, spent them all with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Were you surprised at all by the tone of that, or the omission, I would say, of his retirement from anything Patriots related?
I mean, I guess maybe a little surprised until I was reminded of what he said when he left New England. I think that he made all of those comments when he left New England. I obviously expected something in this statement to be attributed to them, and I know he's since said something on social media responding to the statement that the Patriots made. So he's acknowledged them at least, but it was. I'm not going to lie. I've been in this area my whole life. I was born and raised here. I was literally born at a hospital right across the street from the old Sombrero Tampa Stadium. So like I cover this team for a living, and I check my fandom at the door when it's time to get the job done. But there's no lie that it makes me feel some sort of pride as a longtime fan of this organization that the greatest player of all time decided I'm going to go to Tampa Bay. I'm going to help them win a championship. And that it seems like everything he did for this community and this town and this team, it seems like he was rewarded in his direction just as much by the way he spoke about the team and the community in that statement that he made this morning. And that makes me happy. That makes me happy that he came to my town, my city, and helped this team win a championship, but also found a home here in this area. And it was so enjoyable for him and his family. He talks so much about how he's enjoyed being here. That makes me happy as a longtime resident of this area, longtime fan of this team. It makes me happy that he felt as rewarded as I think this fan and base and this community was by his presence here.
Yeah, really cool on all of those fronts. Luke Easterling, our guest, covers the Bucs for the Bucs Wire, but also the Draft Wire. Senior Bowl this weekend as we transition to try to find the next group of Tom Brady's out there. Not sure there is one of this in these quarterback classes, but there is a lot of talent at the Senior Bowl, and now we are into the draft process. What do you expect to see on Saturday at the Senior Bowl? Who are some names that have caught your eye in the process early?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the conversation with the draft at large, but especially the Senior Bowl, always surrounds the quarterbacks, right? And when I've been up to Mobile when there's a couple of years where there hasn't been much from the quarterbacks to write about. I remember one year where Bryce Petty from Baylor, I think, was like the best quarterback prospect we got to see that week. So that tells you all you need to know. But I mean, there are also years where it's been really, really good. We had Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott there one year, and that was a lot of fun to watch those guys compete. And this year, I think it's going to be very similar. Most of the top quarterbacks are there. Kenny Pickett from Pitt is there. Malik Willis from Liberty is there. Definitely a lot of talent at the quarterback position. And the Senior Bowl can make or break your draft class in a lot of ways because it's a really unique opportunity for everybody in the NFL community to descend on Mobile. And it's different than the Combine, which is mostly athletic testing and medical testing and that sort of thing. This is an opportunity to have a week of practice with NFL coaches, and especially at the quarterback position, to see how these guys lead their teams. That's something I remember standing out about Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott and the way they responded as leaders during that week. It can do a lot to convince teams, particularly ones that are picking high and considering a quarterback, to say, hey, we saw this guy go about his business as a team leader and as a field general all week, and we're convinced he can do that for our team. So you can do a lot for your draft class, especially as a quarterback. stock, if you will, by how you approach this week.
Any wide receivers that Browns fans should keep an eye on? It's a position that many people think the Browns will be looking at. And I know I'm not sure if any of the elite guys we've seen go, as we've seen 5 or 6 receivers go in a lot of these round 1 mocks, but most underclassmen. Any receivers there that you would recommend keeping an eye on?
Yeah, 2 guys in particular that I would really encourage any team that wants a wide receiver to look at. And one of them is from close by there, Jalen Tolbert from South Alabama. They actually play in that stadium where they're practicing right now at the Senior Bowl. But 6'3", just under 200 pounds, big, long arms, great guy after the catch. Usually with taller receivers, it's tough to get guys who are smooth in and out of their breaks and are able to break tackles after the catch and be agile. He can do all those things. Obviously, this is a great week for him because playing at South Alabama, you don't get to face the top competition every week. You're going to get to see that this week because he's going to go up against corners from Ohio State and Auburn and all these places where you're going to be able to see what he can do against that top talent. And the other guy from the FCS level is Christian Watson from North Dakota State, obviously a dominant program at their level, but this is a Division I athlete, 6'4", 215, and he's every bit of it. A lot of times we see those measurements on team school bios and websites, and then they get to the combine or they get to Mobile, and they're a lot smaller than they're listed. But he's not, and Christian Watson still a pretty raw prospect, needs to be more consistent with actually catching the football. But as an athlete and the potential he brings as a small school guy, I really like the size and athleticism he brings.
Luke, great stuff as always. Appreciate your time, pal. Thanks for giving us a little bit of it today.
Hey, it's my pleasure, guys. Take care.
All right, good stuff there. Luke Easterling, the Draft Wire, and a reporter at the Bucks Wire covering Tampa Bay. On the other side of this quick timeout, I do think we get some clarity on what happened here with the Brady retirement. If you just connect some dots, we'll explain that coming up. Pretty chaotic thing going on up at Michigan as well. We'll explain that with Jim Harbaugh and how he could land in the NFL. Wyatt Teller coming up in the second hour of the program as well. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. So I think Traney is right. And I think if you just start to connect some dots a little bit, you see this Ryan Russillo tweet, who obviously would have a lot of connections still in Bristol at ESPN. He said the weirdest part is that Brady thought he could tape a retirement segment a few weeks before the episode and no one would tell someone else.
Yeah.
You know, I think Traney had that this morning. I mean, it made a lot of, when I read it, I thought that's it. That's clearly it. And what a better way if you think about what he was trying to do from a narrative standpoint with the man in the arena, here is all my greatness, some of my faults, some of the big losses, going over it, all the insight that he provided in that series, and then to conclude it with, and now I'm done. I mean, that's a perfect way to finish the chapter of the book, or the final episode of the series.
All right, let's just play conspiracy theory for a second, so that it was the shot for this ESPN property. Somebody at ESPN who was involved in this told their reporters at ESPN, Schefter and Darlington, who then broke it. Was that more valuable to ESPN to do it that way than it would have been to have it come out pure on Man in the Arena?
I think it's more valuable to Schefter, and I think it's probably more valuable. It's definitely more valuable to Schefter. I don't know if it's more valuable or not to ESPN. I don't think ESPN benefited much from Tom Brady's retirement coming on a Saturday where there's no NFL football and where they're having to do interviews with Adam Schefter during college game day for the basketball at Lawrence, in Lawrence, Kansas, for Kansas and Kentucky. I mean, I don't think that's the way you draw it up. But I think my hunch is probably what happened. It's the same thing, like you said. If you have a secret, tell nobody. And you think about how many people it takes. You think about the amount of people that it takes to put together something like the Man in the Arena. Think of the amount of editors, the sound people, the people in the control room, the producers, all of the people it would take to put something like that together. You are relying on all of them to say nothing. Now, when you have valuable information, the first thing that you want to do is tell it to everybody. It's human nature. You can't wait. So now if you add to that the fact that if you go all the way in on this, and I think this is probably the way it happened, you're somebody who's on that show, and who better to give it to than Adam Schefter, who's got a lot of power at that network, who can lift you.
Why would they all have to sign NDAs like you would if you were working on a big movie?
I would think they would, but even still, the other thing probably is I'm sure at a place like ESPN, production and news are two totally separate entities almost, would be my guess, that they answer to different masters. So, but I mean, I think that's probably the way that it played out.
No matter what, it's a little bit wild. It's definitely a little wild.
Yes. Yeah, no, I don't think ESPN benefited really. I think Adam Schefter benefited from being able to break it. Him and Darlington benefited. But from a network standpoint, they would have benefited by them breaking it, them building an entire day's worth of programming around it. Remember what they did with the decision?
Yes, of course.
I mean, they benefit tremendously from that, with programming. So they lost here. To me, the only person that won is Schefter. What I think would be fascinating is, like, what were the conversations with Schefter and his bosses? If this is the way that it happened and he got the information that way, what were the conversations like between him and his bosses when they're saying, hey, this is an ESPN product. Like, we will benefit as a company if this comes out in a very meticulous way, a curated way on this series that airs on ESPN Plus versus a Saturday in college football. Like, who greenlit him to do that?
That's a great question. And did it really benefit him? I didn't feel like people were today being like, oh, victory lap for Schefter, as much as I think people were. I think there are a lot of people. I'm not. I understand what his job is, but I think there were a lot of people that were annoyed with Adam Schefter.
I think they were too. I think that's more of a trend of where we are with, people not understanding what the job of the media is what I think. I mean, that's literally his job function. Break stories. That's it. He's a one man. It's a one objective. I think
being positive about a team when you're a team employee. It's like, people
that's the job.
The nuance. Yeah.
You got to pay attention to the scores. I think your point is correct in that I think there was some vitriol, like let Tom announce his own stuff. But also there is some validation that he did have it, and he has missed some in recent years. So I think it probably felt good to land one of those. And he does. I think he probably does benefit as the news breaker of record in the NFL. He gets to keep that title for a while longer,
No doubt. There, no doubt at all. In another, well, when you think about, I wonder what kind of eyeballs it would have done, because this is an interesting one. Field Yates just tweeting out that according to the NFL, the AFC and NFC championship games averaged 49.6 million viewers. Averaged.
Is that good?
Yeah,
well, that's not even the half of it. The Chiefs game, they peaked at over almost 61 million on CBS. So, look, I mean, in simplest terms, in simplest, most straightforward terms, the NFL is the most viable, valuable entertainment property in North America by 100 miles. Second is eighth in this case. It's not close. The money that is being paid by the networks to this league are justified, and then probably then some. And there's nothing else like it. And for everybody who said a few years ago, I don't watch the NFL, I'm not going to watch it anymore, you're liars. You're all watching, and you can't stop watching. And that's the reality of it. These are the best numbers since 2014, guys.
Yeah.
It's the best number since 14. In an era where there are more and more things that are pulling from our attention span, the NFL remains this thing that cannot be conquered from a rating standpoint. There is the biggest television show of the last year was Yellowstone. Their episodes averaged, around 14 million an episode. Okay, that was the number one show on television at a cable network that was basic extended cable is what Paramount was, and it was around 14 million an episode. This is 49 on the average over the course of the 3.5 hours. There's nothing close.
No. So according to, this is from Schefter, nearly 100 million unique viewers tuned in. This 49.6 million average ranks as the second most watched championship Sunday since 2016, up since 2020, 10%, 16% versus 2019. Here's the craziest stat, though. Both games also rank as the two most watched television programs since the last Super Bowl. Additionally, listen to this stat. 60% of Americans using televisions in the NFL windows on Championship Sunday were watching NFL games, the highest share for Championship Sunday on record. 60% of all people in this country who were watching television during those games were watching those games.
I mean, that's staggering.
Is that even real?
No, it doesn't feel like it. And to just further buttress the point of the power of this league, here are the cities involved: Cincinnati, Kansas City, which are at best mid-market. Those are mid-market size cities, right? Neither of those would you consider large market. Both in middle America, flyover states, as the people call them, sadly. Los Angeles, where the fever for that franchise is tepid at best there. So that's not some huge brand. The Rams aren't some monster brand. LA's a big market, obviously, but it's not a football crazy market based on what we've seen from the reception the Chargers and the Rams have got. The only blue blood in here is San Francisco.
Yep.
That's it. And they did that. And they'll do it for the Super Bowl. The point of it is it doesn't matter. They have market-proofed their sport. Whether your team's in it or not, you care. And it doesn't matter what market the team is from. There's no other example of that in sports. There's no other example of it in entertainment. It's crazy.
You didn't have the Cowboys. You didn't have any East Coast teams.
No East Coast teams, no NFC East teams, no Steelers, no Packers.
And you said that the Chiefs-Bengals actually outdid the Niners-Rams.
They're pretty much even, but the peak of Chiefs-Bengals was higher than anything the Rams and 49ers did. It was 61 million. So the peak was 61 million and in that game. So, and it's why it's just so beloved. There's no way to put it into perspective because there is no peer in all of sports or entertainment at this point. Some wild things happening on the NFL hiring front. We'll get into that and how it also may apply to the college side of things. Nathan's conversation with Wyatt Teller coming up in this hour as well. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Beau here for my friends at EOX Vantage. EOX Vantage connects core systems that don't talk. From reportings and analytics to insight and decision-making, you can gain a more complete real-time picture of your business, eliminate Excel nightmares from business processes, and visualize your important data in one place. Gain real-time insight to make data-driven decisions on performance through role-based visualization dashboards. With EOX Vantage, you can benefit from lower overall costs, better alignment between technology and specific business needs, scalability, ease of deployment, and management. EOX Vantage makes your data work smarter to move your business forward. You're all about growth, and your software should be too. With EOX Vantage, it can be. Your company will scale effortlessly. Local presence, but global footprint, trusted by some of the world's biggest brands. And the 2021 Cleveland Plain Dealer Top Workplaces winner. Check them out, www.eoxvantage.com. This is, well, before this, so on Twitter, there's this thing called Sports of the 80s. And they have this, they say Tom Brady, it says Tom Brady's success can be traced back to this 1983 Sears catalog. So if you're of a certain age, you remember getting the Sears catalog vividly. I know I certainly do.
Sure.
And it's a picture of Danny White, who's a nemesis of mine, and a young Cowboys fan in a Danny White jersey and a helmet. And then it's got all these jerseys and helmets that you can get. One of them, of course, is a 49ers 16, and there's a picture of Brady in the 49ers 16 jersey in the helmet as part of that outfit that you could buy, which led me to say that the one I remember getting as a kid that I had circled was Dan Fouts. I liked the color of those helmets, apparently, when I was young, and led you to tell a story of Pedro. Please recant.
Nerd, when I was at St. Ignatius, I played on the same football team as Dan Fouts, Nerd. And Nerd, he had a real strong arm. How strong, you might ask? Well, how strong indeed. It was this strong, Nerd. He would sit on his knees at the 30-yard line and throw a spiral through the other goalpost. That's 80-plus yards in the air, Nate, from his knees. Nerd.
Yes, a true story. He was born in 1951 in San Francisco.
Yep.
So he is 1 year younger than Pedro, and went to St. Ignatius College Prep in San Francisco before going to Oregon, and then, of course, to the Chargers. Third-round pick. I would not have had that. He was a third-round pick of the Chargers in 1973. But, yeah, my dad was a year ahead of him in high school, and my dad was on that team and said that Fouts had an absolute cannon.
Yeah, that would be a cannon. That's an incredible.
I don't think it's possible what he's saying.
Who's got the
80 yards off of their knees?
Yeah.
I don't think that's possible.
Jamarcus Russell threw a ball the furthest I've ever seen somebody in person when he was in high school before he committed to LSU. In terms of just in person, like without pads on or anything, like anybody, because you never see pros doing that. You don't see them, really airing it out like that, in any sort of warm up or in the game. So that's the furthest I've seen. Well, they used to do that competition. You remember?
Game,
like
you want to see the guys hit taters, hit the long ball. Let's just throw some 80-yard passes if we can do it.
They used to do that was it around the Pro Bowl where they would have like the longest pass competition and all of that, and Favre would always be somebody in the mix on that front.
Yeah, but I feel like 80 yards from your knees, I just don't think it's possible.
Hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine. Who's got the strongest arm you've seen in person?
Jeff George.
Yeah.
An absolute rocket.
Yeah, he did. Michael Vick had a rocket arm.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I was trying to think of just when he just unfurled it. Vick's was probably the one that jumps to mind. I've not seen Mahomes play in person. I've not seen Allen in person. I'm thinking of the recent guys.
I just pulled up an article from CBS from the end of 2020 that says Baker's incomplete Hail Mary on that Monday night game, at the end of that Monday night football game, that crazy one with the Ravens, went 70-plus yards in the air, just over 70, and that was the longest throw on record, over 70 yards in the air in NFL history, supposedly. Now, Mahomes says he can throw the ball 75 to 83 yards. I would add, just as an impartial observer, that's a 10% cushion. You're giving yourself an 8-yard margin off of an 80-yard throw. I'd like to dial that in a little bit more. I feel like we should be a little bit more accurate than that. Josh Allen, you'd have to feel like might be in the conversation. But, yeah, according to Pro Football Focus, Baker Mayfield made NFL history throwing an incomplete Hail Mary pass that was over 70 yards on Monday night against the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, he whipped it. See, how would you even measure them? Yeah, Marino people talk about, certainly Favre. Marino had a rocket. Elway had a rocket. There was always a story about Elway that he would that he had the ability to, like, with his passes, had the ability to, like, break shoulder pads if you let it get into you like that he threw it that hard. And he was a pitcher too, so you always think of those guys that can do that.
Nate, have I ever told you the story about the Elway cross? Nate, word at Stanford was John Elway would throw passes in practice to his receivers, and they'd go so fast that they couldn't get their hands up, and they would be left with the cross, the point of the pigskin that comes together, the four flaps makes a cross, and it would be called the on their chest. Nerd.
Pedro,
Also,
incredible F week. What a segment for Pedro. A lot of anecdotal knowledge he has of our topic of the day right here.
He does, and listen, the Niners have failed him, and so he's on to reminiscing, which he does very well.
Yeah, I love that. I look forward to one day sitting down with Pedro and enjoying a nice Super Tuscan, perhaps, and hearing the stories of your youth through his lens. I think that's.
I don't know if I'd enjoy that.
I feel like I'd love that. One other thing on the NFL. We'll get to the coaching stuff. Are the Broncos getting close to being sold? I'm seeing this from Bill Barnwell on the Broncos side, emphasizing that Pat Bowlen brought the Broncos in '84 for $78 million, and they expect the team to sell for $4 billion.
Jeez.
That's a pretty good investment. Return on that investment of the $78 million on that front. Still some uncertainty on the NFL coaching front, but this is one of the most surreal things that I've ever heard in football. Jim Harbaugh is going to interview for a second time with our guy, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, on Wednesday in Minneapolis for the Minnesota Vikings head coaching job. So they met on Saturday, and now he's going to interview with Kwesi on tomorrow at Minnesota.
Yeah.
And you say, well, boy, that's strange. He's a sitting head coach at Michigan. Yep, it is strange. Why is Michigan putting up with it? Who knows? I went over that yesterday. It's even worse than that. Do you know what tomorrow is?
2/2/2022.
National Signing Day.
Oh.
Now, it's not as important as the first National Signing Day, which has now been moved up to December, but this is the day when all the rest of the college athletes who haven't signed. And the head coach at Michigan is going to be in Minneapolis interviewing to be the coach of the Vikings.
This feels in some ways like we're the Beastie Boys. I'm telling all of y'all it's sabotage. It's like
crazy.
What Lincoln Riley's doing to Oklahoma now, which, I mean, the personal nature of that exit becomes more shocking by the moment.
So for people who don't know,
I'm sure have a lot to talk about that.
Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma kind of in the middle of the night to go to USC. There's very little precedent for coaches coaching at places like Oklahoma and then leaving for another job. Oklahoma is a Mount Rushmore Cadillac job. He goes to USC, which is also a Mount Rushmore Cadillac job. But not only has he done that, he then went about pillaging the next couple of Oklahoma recruiting classes. To be fair, recruits that he had recruited, but typically there's a gentleman's agreement. Like, you don't recruit. Like when Mark Richt went to Miami, he wasn't recruiting, the guys off of the Georgia that he had committed in the previous classes to go to Miami. Like, he left him alone. Riley went and got him, including a 5-star quarterback in a class in 2 years from now. But then it got worse. Caleb Williams was the number one dual-threat quarterback in the country, announced that he was going to enter the portal but could return to Oklahoma. Today, he signed with USC. Like, what did Oklahoma do to Lincoln Riley that would lead to this type of diabolical takedown?
I mean, it's an insane takedown, and I saw, you tweeted, I think, exactly what you just said verbatim.
Yeah.
What happened?
What happened?
This nature, this level of, it's almost like he's exacting revenge. Like they wronged him in some way, and so not only am I out of here, I'm going to hurt you and take your most valuable possessions.
That's exactly what it's like. Yes.
In a breakup,
I'm leaving you. I found a prettier girl.
Take what matters to you, even though I don't even like it.
Even though I don't even care about it. I'm doing it out of spite.
That's right.
I'm leaving you for a prettier girl, and you get nothing from I'm taking it all. I get the house, the cars, the kids. Best of luck to you. And I left you. That's what it is. It's crazy.
Crazy.
One thing on the Michigan front, Matt Rule, a prime candidate for the Michigan job. I do not buy that. I don't buy that.
Interesting.
I don't see that.
Why not?
I think their first two calls would be to Matt Campbell at Iowa State and Luke Fickell at Cincinnati. Matt Rule, from what I can tell, would have no connection. I mean, unless something I'm missing, he was a grad assistant there at some point. We'd have no connection. I don't know that he's ever recruited this part of the country. I think you have to have that at Michigan. And more importantly, he's got a 7-year, $75 million contract with Carolina. I don't see Michigan paying for that. So I think you factor all of those things up. That seems farcical, in the words of the great Al Michaels, to me on that front.
Farcical is a great word for it. Don't you feel like, though, if they're going to do – okay, so let's say he is – I'm going to say desperate, not as speculation. Let's say he is, in fact, desperate to go to the National Football League. It feels that way. It feels like he wants out. I won, and now I'm running away before I go on another decade-long losing streak.
Yep. Yeah.
They would have to, I think, get somebody big to replace him, right? So is that why do you think it's just somebody that, grasping at straws, trying to come up with a big name, and maybe Matt Rule has decided, you know what? I like the college the way it works.
I just don't think you would I think you'd have to have somebody who could recruit Northern Ohio. And I think Matt Campbell could do that.
The one who's saying it, which is
I wonder if he's trying to drive, but he wouldn't be connected at Michigan in any way, shape, or form. None.
And Locke and Forrest said that.
I was talking. That seems like people trying to get Matt Rule a little more time. I could be wrong. I was talking to people at Michigan. I have some pretty good friends up there today, and that was not a name that was bandied about by them. So, who knows? I mean, Jason does a good job, and so does and Paul. I have a hard time believing that's where that would go.
I was trying to see if there was a connection, like in any of these articles, if people had said that, and I don't see any connections.
Well, he was at Baylor, and before that he was at Temple.
Right.
You just go back. I mean, I don't see anything. No, he's at Baylor, at Temple. I'm even trying to find as an assistant coach. Did he ever cross paths with somebody? No, he's at Albright College, Buffalo, UCLA, Western Carolina. Like, there's no ties at all to Michigan or to this part of the country. He's a New York guy.
Yeah.
He went to college at Penn State. He went to high school in Happy Valley. Like, he's
and
not
he volunteered assistant at Penn State.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was long rumored at Penn State because of all of that, and then he coached it. But there are no ties here to this part of the country or to Michigan. So I don't know. That seems out of left field to me. I don't know. Who knows though? We'll see on that front. All right. Coming up next, we go one-on-one with Wyatt Teller coming up next. Wyatt Teller coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
Welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily. Very happy now to be joined by Browns Pro Bowl right guard, second team All-Pro right guard, the one and only Wyatt Teller. And now, Wyatt, I know you and Baker are very tight. How's he doing after this surgery?
Yeah, no, he's I talked to him the other day. We made sure to FaceTime after the Bengals are going to the Pro Bowl. We made sure to give him a call. Just talk some smack. But Baker's, obviously it sucks when you can't use your arm, but he seems like he's, doing well, chilling in on a beautiful lake. We FaceTimed him. Oh my gosh, Lake Travis is gorgeous. And I was like, all right, when are you guys inviting us down? And, no, I think he's doing well. And, obviously it sucks, coming off of an injury, especially with the year that we had. But I think, surgery went well. And that's what's most important. And as long as he can start recovering and getting back, and, I'm excited to have him back.
I know everybody will be excited to have him back. And for you, an exciting season, and we'll talk about the team aspect, but let's talk personally for a second. You're about to depart town, get away from this Arctic bomb, head to Las Vegas for your first ever Pro Bowl appearance, not to mention second consecutive year. You are second team All-Pro in the National Football League at right guard. And we'll talk team. I said that. And I know that you're a team first guy, so the team goals matter the most. But individually, those are pretty nice accolades to have, and a great kind of recognition from your peers and from the league itself on what you were able to accomplish.
No doubt. I mean, it's amazing. It's, being able to have the success that I'm having at the age that I am. Not everybody walks around there, Quentin Nelson in year one there in the Pro Bowl. It's hard to do, or, all pro is very difficult. There's a lot of good players in the NFL, and I'm blessed to one, have the coaching staff that I have, the players around me. JC, we had tackle, depth issues, but, the guys that came in, they played hard, and that's all you can ask for. Right. It was a good year. There's a lot of good things. I signed a contract, got married. There's a lot of things that I'll remember from 2021 that are an amazing thing, but I'd rather still be playing.
Of course.
Luckily, I'm still kind of staying in shape. There's 5 of us Cleveland Browns who are staying in shape, getting ready for one more game. But it would have been nice if, 53 of us were.
No doubt. And so is that why you've been in there? Because I've been seeing you now that I get to walk through the field house to go to the gym and get my own little workouts in there. I see you going like an animal out there with Evan Marcus and just hammering tires and all the pull-ups and madness.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. I was with Evan Marcus, so of course we're going to be doing some crazy things, and beating up tires, Zercher carries. Not just the strength of a squat when your feet are on the ground, but the strength over a step. Today we did this overhead press where we press, you take 3 huge steps back, you stop, you take 3 huge steps forward, you drop it down, you press it again, and you do it 5 times straight. So, it's, shoulder stability, strength, grinding action. I mean, even if you do it as fast as you can, you're still spending 30 seconds under stress. So, he's a madman, but he knows what he's doing, and he definitely gets the most out of his guys.
When you think about the fact that, in this team, we'll talk, you mentioned the players next to you, the wisdom of a JC Treader or certainly a Joel who's going to be joining you in the Pro Bowl and on the All-Pro team. You've got Evan Marcus for these crazy strength things. You've got Bill Callahan, who maybe is the most well-regarded offensive line coach in NFL history. And then you've got Coach Peters, who's at the Shrine Game right now, who knows how to tell you where to put your thumb to exert maximum force. I mean, it's kind of like, for an offensive lineman, is this kind of like nirvana in terms of all of the different avenues you have to better yourself physically and mentally?
Yeah, and I was thinking about that. And, Coach Callahan, he knows the formula for success, right? He allowed me the ability to jump exponentially, even with, minor experience, right? Each year you spend in the league, you're going to grow one more thing. But, as your athletic ability or your knowledge goes, your athletic ability, as age goes, that's just how it works, right? So you find guys who have that knowledge and have that athletic ability at year one, Quentin Nelson, guys like that. And that's rare. That's why you pay those guys a lot of money. But then you have people like Joel, who is getting older, but is getting more athletic. He's smarter, he's faster, he's stronger than he ever was. It's amazing when you see guys like that. And in my personal, experience with Coach Callahan, I came in and I didn't have a lot of experience, and he was able to, offset that and jump my technique and fundamentals forward. We're still, I still have a lot to work on, and I say that every week. But he truly was, an exponential factor in my performance. I think that he jump started. Usually guys who are playing their best offensive line, same with defensive line, it's not until their, fourth, fifth, sixth year that they really start gelling their pass rush moves or their offensive line, technique and stuff. It takes a lot of time to gel that stuff. So to be able to have the success that I had at year 3, year 4, it's a blessing. And I give it to the guys around me. Obviously, there was some stick-to-itiveness, throughout my experience. But like I said, all these accolades, they're amazing. They're, it's really cool, but it's just another stepping stone. And, my mom always used to make a joke, not to call out my brother at all or anything, but he would always have his, his trophies and his stuff. And he was always very proud of his accolades. And I remember, I'd get first place on something and I'd just throw it away. It didn't matter to me. The accolades are awesome. It's an amazing thing. And I'm not diminishing what I've accomplished, but that's all it is. It's what I've accomplished. It's not the future, right? I have to continue to do it and continue to work and continue to accomplish, the goals that I want to do to set me apart from other guys.
And that's a great mindset, which is what separates often the truly great ones from those who have, can be a flash in the pan. I remember talking to you right after Coach Callahan got hired, and then you mentioned that he had, recruited you a little bit when he was, I think he was with Washington maybe at the time, and you were at Virginia Tech. Do you guys ever kind of laugh back at that and say, you knew something back then, because now look at what you guys are doing together?
So this guy, he likes to tell a story. Bill Callahan likes to tell a story about how I went up there and we did this, pro day or whatever it was. Not our Virginia Tech pro day, but they had, guys come up there. Sure. And instead of private working me out, they said, hey, you're 3 hours away. Do you just want to come up to Northern Virginia? So I came up and, worked out with some guys and worked out with Coach Callahan. And he likes to tell this story, which is not true because we did not use their lockers. That I came in there and I messied up Bill Callahan's locker, just threw everything around and just left. He is full of crap. I tell you what, but no, he's awesome. That week prior to the draft, he was talking to me. He goes, hey, this is the plan. He wasn't bull. It's nice to have someone who shoots you straight, which Bill Callahan shoots you straight. There's nothing about him that's, sideways. He will tell you the truth. And, he was like, hey, we're looking at you on day 3. We hope to, get you a 5th, 6th round. And I was like, Coach, thank you. Hopefully I go before that, but you just never know. And, ended up, 4 picks before, or I think it was 1 pick after the Redskins picked up my teammate, who's an absolute stud, Tim Settle, that the Bills ended up picking me. And, but my agent for the longest time, Andrew Ross, he was telling me, he goes, Wyatt, you need to get with Bill Callahan. He is going to help you out. Again, I use this word exponentially. He's going to jumpstart your performance. And it just so happened, being a man of faith, that 2 years later, really a year and a half later, I get Bill Callahan and, get to experience one of the best. And, he is truly, a huge help to, the ability that I have. I think that, a lot of the guys, he can get you into a dark place, but if you're willing to take a step forward and not a step back, you're going to get the most out of them.
I love that. I love that it kind of, the full circle nature of that story for you there. He's a guy who's coached a ton of Pro Bowlers. I know you've probably watched tape of the Pro Bowlers that he's coached, and this is how you're supposed to do things. And that Joel's obviously been to the Pro Bowl. I think it was his 3rd straight. Did they give you any advice about this week and, how to enjoy it and what to expect?
Yeah. Funny story. After the last game, he comes up and he goes, hey, congratulations. Fist bumps me. And I'm like, what? He goes, you played every snap of every game this year. I was like, hell yeah, man. I go, you did too. He goes, yeah. I go, wait, this is the 5th year you've done that straight. Played through an entire season and played damn near maybe, a snap here, a snap there. That is an amazing thing. And it shows you how tough and how of an Iron Man he truly is. But no, he's, about the whole thing, he's like, hey, enjoy it. It's a moment, it's a blip, right? We're starting our off season, so we're still kind of in a football mode, but we're also watching other teams, enjoy the moment, enjoy the guys there, make the most out of it, grow friendships, right? Because a lot of those guys, I even joke about it, we'll be in a game and, I call Joe the dirtbag. He's this nice, upstanding guy, but they're on the field. He will smack you in the face. And it's funny how I'll come up after a game and everybody thinks that I'm the douchebag. I'm the nicest guy on the field. But everybody will come up to me and be like, hey, talking smack. And I'll be like, what? Like, I don't even talk smack. And during the game, like, he'll be dapping up the D lineman, like, what's up, man? I'm like, how the hell do you guys know each other? Pro Bowl. Oh, okay. Got it.
Sure. Yeah. A nice flex there.
So you're the meanest one, and they like you. That's funny. But all jokes.
That's where you're going there. You're going to cultivate these relationships now. I mean, all people probably know about you is that they end up on whatever the offensive lineman version of being posterized is when you do your Superman flying through the air blocks, clearing out Bengals. They probably still remember that, even though they're going on to a big time game in a couple of weeks. That's what these guys remember about you.
I think that everybody turns on that film and was like, hey, let's try to do this. And it was just like, it was a perfect storm of, I don't know, what happened, but, that first game, we came in there for that Bengals butt. And, we played hard. I mean, we whooped them. And then they, I think the key to it, and I even said this, I'm not mad. I'm kind of a little jealous. I think that's natural,
sure.
right?
Because I
want to be playing. It's natural.
Yeah.
But it's amazing, the success that they've had in such a short period. I mean, people forget 2 years ago they had won, 4 games?
Yeah, the number one pick.
Yeah.
Number one pick for the Super Bowl in 2 years.
And then now they've won more games in January. I mean, it's amazing. So I'm not mad at them. The key to us, I think the key to the Browns, beat the freaking Steelers and Ravens, and we will go to the playoffs and we'll be all right. But if we can't do that, then I don't know, man. But we won our 2 games against Cincinnati. But no, I can't be mad at them. They're the underdogs, and not anymore. Now they're not the underdogs. Now they're playing well. But it is amazing to see that success in such a short period of time. I even go back to us. Like, people forget 5-6 years ago, maybe even less, we were what? 0.
That's right.
Worse than the Lions, right?
Yep.
And everybody was talking about how bad the Lions fought their butts off this year, but way worse than the Lions. And here we are sitting at 8-9 talking about how we're the failures of the NFL. And it's like, all right, guys, calm down. Don't get too up. Don't get too down. I think that's just natural as a Browns fan to get like that, because for so long it's always been that high emotional roller coaster. And I think that now it's like, yeah, it sucks. We're, under 500, but man, we're going to be okay. And and to me, it's like, we forget that, we've had success. We just got to continue to find this formula for success, and understanding that you work your butt off, you outwork the competition, and it only gives you a chance. You could be playing, we saw it with the Chiefs. You could be playing a team that can score, or the Chiefs and Bills game, 2 quarterbacks that could score 24 points in less than a minute. That isn't, 2 minutes, but still insane.
Yeah, that was insane.
So you see what I'm saying? Like, you can do everything right and just get out in a shootout and lose, right? So the key to it is if you don't work, you stand no chance.
Right.
There's no chance of success. So the only way that you have a chance is if you work.
Do you feel like, in talking to the guys on the team, that this year, what you got a taste of 2 years ago, the way that this year goes, seeing a Bengals team that you guys are 4-0 against the last 2 years, playing in the Super Bowl, do you feel like it's kind of lit a fire under everybody? Like September can't get here soon enough. Like, let's do all the work so that we can get these rewards.
Yeah. I know that a lot of guys are enjoying their the first couple weeks of offseason, but I know that everybody who's a competitor wants to be out there, wants to still be playing, doesn't care if my hip hurts, if my arms hurt, my elbows hurt, man, we're still playing. We're playing for the highest accolade that, as a team you could get in the NFL. Other than Hall of Fame, that is forever.
Yep.
And I think that it's imperative for all the guys to understand, that it can be done. Tell me that not got lucky. They won the North, so they didn't get lucky, but they got in. They beat a Raiders team. They beat a Titans team, and then they went and beat a Chiefs team. Teams that we can beat, right?
Yeah.
Like teams that we've played to the line, and it shows you that I heard someone say snake through. Man, they're playing, they're winning. I mean, that's not snaking through, that's winning. So
Right.
I think that they're a team that shows that they can play at a very high level, whether it be, what was it, the Titans game? I think their offensive line gave up, so
9
many
sacks. 9.
The next week, they had more sacks than the Chiefs.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So like this NFL, it'll drive you nuts. But it is. I think it's lit in a fire. I can't speak for other people, but I know it's lit in a fire under my ass, and I'm ready to go.
You are. Well, Wyatt, we appreciate the time. Congrats to you. Just want to go back to something you said earlier. What a year this has been. Starts off with the playoff win, obviously, right in Pittsburgh. That was in January 2021. You get married. You sign this contract. All pro again. First Pro Bowl. That's a pretty good 12 months. Like, you can make a movie about that. That's pretty awesome. Have you been able to kind of take a second now and be like, wow, there was quite a bit good and life-changing. I mean, marriage, life-changing, contract, life-changing, obviously, and then accolades, which you said are nice stepping stones, but a life-changing year for you, not to mention a gator on your back. I mean, it had it all, 2021.
Hey, I think it started off with the playoff win, then it was the gator on my back. That's what it was. No, I think that, it's been a blessing, and I always bring it back, but I'm surrounded by amazing people. I always make the joke, when I asked Carly to marry me, I surrounded myself with really smart people, and then they make me look really smart, and that's how you have success, right? All jokes, but you're
already learning how to function in a marriage right now. Compliments are going to get you a long way. Yeah, she's the smart one. Very good. You're
she is.
You got the hang of this.
I picked her. She's the doer in our family. Well, I'm happy she picked me.
That's right.
But no, it is definitely something that it's a year that's going to go down in infamy.
In Teller history.
Teller history.
Well, anyway, dude, always a pleasure talking to you. Have the best time in Vegas. You have earned it. You deserve it. And like I said, this was a blast. We will do it again soon. And looking forward to see what 2022 has in store in the next chapter of Teller history.
Let's hope better.
That's right.
If it continues, if each year gets better, which it has, if each year gets better in my young life,
forget it. Living the dream.
Thank you, guys.
We still have so much more to come here on Cleveland Browns Daily.
We're in the break.
Rumpke Waste and Recycling, family-owned and operated. Whether you join them as a customer or as an employee, you'll be part of the family. Visit rumpke.com to learn more on that front. I'll tell you what, on the Brady side of this is a seller's market in the quarterback world. The amount of teams that need him, the fact that there aren't a lot in this draft that many people think are sure things. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. I think right now most people have 3 quarterbacks kind of slotted in the draft. I think that'll push up. Right now there's not one in any of the mocks that you see that's in the top 10. I think quarterbacks will get in there. I think there's going to be an incredible rush on the quarterback position here in the draft and in free agency and in the trade deadline. You think about Rodgers, Wilson, Watson. The time would seem to be now for Texans, wouldn't it, to trade Deshaun Watson? I mean, I don't know that they could get any hotter to trade him than right now.
I don't disagree with that, and certainly leading into the draft and before free agency, that's when you would want to do it. So I don't even, are they allowed to? Are you allowed to at this point before the change of the league year?
Can't you consummate it, but you can't make it official? Isn't
Probably,
that how that works?
Yeah.
Like we've had that.
Yeah.
That was that way with Stafford. Remember, like
Sure.
he was traded to the Rams, but you couldn't announce it till the new league year.
I think you're right about that. It comes down to where his legal matters stand at this point. But yeah, if you're the Texans, you want to get done before you can put yourself in position to utilize whatever assets it is that you gain in this deal. And to be the first one, you're probably going to extract a pretty high price. I think it's the 2 quarterbacks that are going to fetch the highest prices will probably be. Look, Rodgers, Russ, whatever, those guys are going to command it because of who they are. But Watson, and then whoever's kind of the last of the upgrade quarterbacks, that last guy is going to be a real hot commodity because there aren't enough quarterbacks for teams that are going to want them. And as we've talked about in the AFC, and really in the NFL at large, and now with Tom Brady out, I think it's 21 of the 32 teams in the league have to legitimately be considering, can I upgrade? How do I do that? No, for example, look at the Rams now, and this has to make every team in the league that was in a position
Yes.
like Jared Goff took them to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And they said, you know what? We need to be better. They get Matt Stafford. They're back to the Super Bowl now. The Niners, who have gotten to the NFC Championship game 2 of the last 3 years, including a Super Bowl appearance with Jimmy Garoppolo, traded a bunch of assets because they felt like they needed something that was better than Jimmy Garoppolo. As good as he's been and the belief that his teammates have in him, they thought that they needed that upgrade. So you're talking about 21 teams, and you talk about the quarterbacks that you would say are probably going to go somewhere and be an upgrade over their current situation. Rodgers, Wilson, Watson, and then you're into the Cousins, Garoppolo, Derek Carr group. That's
Correct.
6 guys.
Yeah, that's 6. There's not enough. There's not enough to go around for
That's
all of the
33%.
teams. No, yeah, for all the teams that need them. And, factoring into it, those guys are going to have even more value because of what I said about the college draft eligible guys. I mean, you're talking about Pickett and Malik Willis at Liberty. You're talking about Sam Howell at North Carolina. I think you'll see people get more excited and talk themselves into those guys as you get closer to the draft. I do. I think Sam Howell's a guy who's really going to rise up as this thing starts to get closer. I wouldn't be surprised at all if people start because he's got a big-time arm. They lost a lot of weapons. I could see people getting yourself talked into that because you do feel like if you do not have an elite passing game, you don't have a chance. I think the 49ers are a really interesting team here because they are the ones that can kind of decide which way they want to go about this. Because I don't think anybody would say, based on what we've seen from Trey Lance, that they're ready next year with him to be contenders. He's got a ways to go, still really raw. He's really young, though. Isn't he like 21? I think they drafted him at 20.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really young. So they could Aaron Rodgers him. Like they could sit him for a while and learn. In the meantime, maybe they get themselves into the Rodgers situation. I mean, it would be they tried to acquire him last year before the draft. You have to think that they would be a team that they've got everything else. And if they just had that, you're probably talking about a couple of banners at this point, a couple of Lombardis if they had someone at that level.
And the ironic thing is it's a couple of defensive mistakes, and they may have had them anyway.
Despite
it's a busted coverage against Kansas City, and it's a dropped interception against the Rams. And without that, with the no bust against Kansas City, they win that game. I mean, no doubt. That game was over.
Wasn't that on third and forever?
Fourth, I think. Wasn't it fourth and 17?
It was like 3rd and 20 or fourth. It might have been 4th and 20. It was forever. I do remember that. Can't remember if it was third or fourth. But yeah, but they're to be a wild card in this thing because they have some, they don't have assets from a draft position that are tradable, but they have a team, they have a roster that is. That would be the only tricky thing for them with Rodgers is how could they acquire him because it's going to have to be a renegotiate trade for Rodgers in order for you to acquire him. That's also the tricky thing for him. It's kind of like what Carmelo Anthony did with the Knicks when he was trying to go to the Knicks and then he forced the trade when he could have just waited till he was a free agent and he could have just walked for free. He made the Knicks or the Nuggets give up all of that capital to acquire him, and then by the time he got to the Knicks, there was nothing left to play with.
Yeah, and that's one of the that's why you got to try to strike when the iron is hot, right? You got to force it when you can because you know what the situation is. I think you're right. It looks like it was a 3rd and 15.
Yeah,
Tyreek Hill there in that Super Bowl.
But yeah, it's that play.
This is going to be a wild offseason for quarterbacks. Just absolutely bonkers. And, you would have it felt like reading the tea leaves that Carr and Cousins would have been available, but now you have new leadership in both of those organizations. And so the question becomes, well, what is Kwesi and whoever he hires as head coach with the Vikings, what do they think about Kirk Cousins and what he can do? And, Kwesi coming from the Niners and from here certainly has a value on quarterbacks who played in that system. I'm sure Kyle thinks highly of Kirk Cousins, and I think Kevin Stefanski thinks highly of Kirk Cousins. So the head coaches that he's ever been in an organization with both probably are big Kirk Cousins fans. And then you think about McDaniels and his crew going out there to the Raiders. What do they think of Derek Carr?
Well, they like Jimmy G.
They like Jimmy G. There's no doubt about that.
OBM, Ohio Business Machine, preferred copier provider, your Cleveland Browns. They have all the X's and O's for your office. Call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. Still so much more to come. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Car, truck, or motorcycle accident cause your injury, call the injury lawyers at 1-800-ELK-OHIO for a free case review. Elk and Elk is a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Go Browns. Are you watching Ozark?
Not yet. We got to finish. Once we finish Yellowstone, we're going to hop into Ozark.
Oh, okay. All right. Why are we not lined up on this? We could have been talking about all of this. We could have talked about Yellowstone in real time. We could have been talking about Ozark in real time. Sad.
I blew it, boy.
You blew it, boy. The next level's coming up next. We're back tomorrow. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.